This episode of What the Force is sponsored by Super Yaki. Check out their amazing movie-inspired merch at superyaki.com. Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to I would say this is a What the Fandom, because we are going to be talking about fanzines. And with me is Kara DJ, the creator of the Into a Larger World fanzine. Welcome, Kara.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me today.
And I spotted this on... I don't know who shared it first, but I think it might have been Blast Points. They were talking about the fanzine and about you creating it and sharing some stuff. I think it was on Instagram. And then a bunch of other people subscribed to it. And I saw it on Twitter. And then I was like, I'm just speaking with like Maggie Novakowska and her fanzine experience. I would really love to check out this modern day fanzine.
Yes.
Fanzines, for those of you that might not know, are fan magazines that are created kind of at home and distributed and sold to basically talk about fandom, talk about things that are important to fandom. In the history of zines, it was primarily female-run part of fandom, and it contributed a lot to the growth of fandom in the early days of both Star Trek, Man from U.N.C.L.E., and Star Wars.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, it's the history is really intense when you get into it, to see the kind of stuff that they were making, and also like the conversations that they were having, and how in those old fanzines, and how it's so similar to the conversations that happen online now. And it's just like, it's cool to see how fandom has like its roots in those early zines, and then obviously has grown so much. And yeah, it's really cool.
And like one of the things that I got out of the conversation with Maggie Novakowska, who talked about early fandom and kind of those lessons that we learned from then, is that the conversations, although faster because of technology, haven't changed.
Mm-hmm. it's so true.
It's very much the similar conversations, because in so many ways, as humans, we haven't changed. We just have technology that makes that conversation or the turnaround to that much quicker. And she did point out that maybe with a fanzine, you had to be very sure about what you wanted to say in that fanzine, because it took effort and time to turn that around. So you might send in a letter. It would take a couple of weeks to get there. That letter would be reviewed, maybe put into the fanzine, and then printed. And you might not get a reply to the letter that you wrote for the fanzine for months.
That's very true. Yeah.
Somebody might write a reply to your letter, and you might not get any feedback on that for months, because it might take a couple of issues of that fanzine to come out. And, maybe you had to be really sure about what you wanted to say because you were committing to it in, a very permanent way. Whereas on Twitter, the conversations and the cycles of conversations can happen incredibly fast, or on, Reddit, or on, Facebook, or wherever people are having conversations, Tumblr, Instagram, you can kind of go through the cycles of conversation very, very quickly. But Cara, coming to something that is very traditional from a fandom perspective and being like, oh, let's create one. How did you and your story get there?
Yeah, man, it's it's weird because it's like I don't really know, but I can just literally say how, but it still feels like it kind of came out of nowhere. But I remember making a zine in high school in like an art club that I was in with like a bunch of hip kids, and we made zines and had like a little zine fest. And I think I made one, and it was like, fine, but I didn't really think much of it, but I knew what they were. And I worked at a bookstore in New York that had a lot of really small press books. So I had seen them, and then when I was going to Celebration Chicago, I heard, it was my first celebration, and I heard that people bought stuff to trade. So I was a collage artist, and I was like, what can I make that I can give out to people that's like little? And I knew that there's this one type of like pocket size mini zine that you can just make with like one piece of paper, one cut down the middle, you fold it. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. So I did a little zine with like one character per page and their name. And I printed 50 of them and folded them, carried them around in my fanny pack. When I actually worked at Celebration Chicago. I worked in the store, which was intense, but that's a different story. But so I just handed out the little mini zine to 50 random people. I don't even know who I gave it to. I just was like throwing it at people. And then when I got home, Celebration was so energizing, and so like just this jolt of electricity that I was like, I wonder if I could make a big one. I wonder if I could make a big zine. And would anybody want it? And would that even work? And how would I make it? And so I just in June was the first issue. So Celebration was in April, and then June was the first full-size issue of the zine. And it just kind of started, and then it just didn't stop, basically. Well, that's the easiest way to put it.
Congratulations on keeping up this like project hobby for over a year.
Thank you.
I think I just saw that you passed 200 subscribers.
I did. Yeah. It's crazy. The most I had last year was, I think, 50.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like December, I mailed it out. I mailed the December issue to 50 people last year. So to have that jump so quickly is definitely crazy, but it's just so much fun that it's like, when I see those numbers, I'm just like, what? Okay, that's crazy. Got to make the next one, like it just makes me want to keep going. And it's just a blast.
So what is your Star Wars, like, I don't know, history like that brought you to this point that, obviously the zine creation was something in high school, but like what brought you to be like, I'm loving Star Wars enough to go to Celebration and, express my love, making you like a super fan in some ways?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like that came kind of out of nowhere too. I've always had Star Wars in my life. My dad was really big into special effects and technology, and he loved like having things on DVD when DVDs came out, and obviously on VHS too, and all that. And my brother is my half brother. He's 15 years older than me, so he was born in the 70s, so very much a Star Wars guy. So just through the both of them, I had just seen it, like it was just always there. And then when the prequels came out, I definitely remember seeing them and enjoying it. I remember going to the midnight showing of Revenge of the Sith with my brother, and I thought it was really sad, but I liked it. And I remember I loved Attack of the Clones when it came out too. That really like sticks out in my head. But anyway, so I've always enjoyed Star Wars, but then a few years back, I guess like right before The Last Jedi. I loved Force Awakens. And then right before The Last Jedi, I just randomly, when I was working at this bookstore in New York, they had a lot of used books and we were allowed to borrow them while we worked there, which was awesome. So I just randomly borrowed a hardcover of the Phantom Menace novelization.
Oh,
and
that one's so good.
It's so good. And it like blew my mind and like freaked me out because I was like, why is this so good? Like I don't know why I didn't like, I don't know. I think I had been like kind of leaning into it. I remember I started watching a lot of Star Wars Explained YouTube videos, which I love their stuff. And so it was a little bit of that. And then I read that book and I was like, whoa. And then it just spiraled out from there through The Last Jedi and then with Celebration and all the stuff. It just kind of never stopped and just got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper from there, basically.
Absolutely. You fell down the fandom hole.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. Let's dig into this. Like, as you had started to make them, what were you thinking about when you were like putting them together? Was it like, I hope somebody reads this. I hope, like what were you going for?
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of that. It was kind of like, I don't know. It was kind of just like wanting to use my like collage art skills and my like kind of art journaling skills. And like, how could I use that to celebrate this Star Wars thing that I love so much? So it started with like really simple deep dive issues. Like the first 3 issues are like super simple, really short. And then the September issue, which actually it's coming up on obviously a year, that was the first one where I like really got I feel like that was the first one where I started to hit my stride. It was the one all about Kylo Ren. And it was just like, I really like fell into like the breakdowns of stuff. And I had a couple contributors that month, which was the first time I had contributors besides like a little bit of art in issue 3. So as it moved, I didn't even really think about it, like who was reading, because it was like, I don't know, if people like it, like I'm gonna mail it to you, but I'm not expecting anybody to read it. And so for me it was more like, what are the things that I can talk about, and then like also how can I get other people involved? And that became bigger with issue 5 and then with obviously issue 8. So blah blah blah. But so it was like, how can I get other people involved? What do I really like to talk about? And like random things. And I did like doing the issues that were like super specific, all about one topic, but I have kind of moved away from that as it's gone. But it is, I still stick with that. Like even with the issue I'm putting together now, it's like, how can I get other people involved? What do I want to celebrate? What do I want to talk about? What's like exciting me, basically.
Yeah. And so if people are interested in like contributing to the zine, how do they go about that?
Yeah, just email me. Just email me or DM me on Instagram. My Instagram is Sacred Something by Kara, but I'm always open to ideas, and I love ideas. I have like, my one guideline would be like, I'm not going to print anything that's super hateful or negative, but
yeah,
beyond, obviously, but beyond that, I'm like, bring it on, like anything. I've had so much cool stuff in there so far, and people have just like such cool ideas that I'm like, yes, tell me all of them. I'll collect them and then we'll talk. And yeah, for sure.
So can you go into how you make the zine? What's your process like? What goes into, as I said, like how the sausage gets made in our little outline, like I think people want to know, because it seems like something in the past they would, there would be these big like canister rollers where they would literally like print the zine out, and technology
Crazy.
obviously has changed that. This is in color. It's beautifully produced.
Thank you.
So yeah, tell me all about it. Where do you start? How do you go about all of these different steps?
Sure. So basically, the one thing is that I have like very limited digital skills, as I think you're maybe even experiencing now. So I don't use like any type of digital assistance to make my spreads or anything. I make everything by hand with paper. So like I'll get the pieces of the zine, whether it's pictures or text or font or whatever, I'll get that all printed. I use a local print shop. It's a really small shop. Sometimes I use the library. It obviously hasn't been open much this year, so I've been going mostly to the print shop because he did thankfully stay open. So yeah, I get the pieces printed. I cut with scissors and glue it all into a shell. And then I bring the shell to the print shop and he scans. He does like a really nice scan of it and then just prints the copies, and I fold, and I have an extra long stapler that's really cool. So you can staple really far into the page. And yeah, it's all hand done. And it's the same with, I do a lot of collage art with characters as well. And that is also all by hand. I don't have any digital skills. So it's just like magazines and origami paper.
It's a very classic craft that you're doing. I love your R2D2 collage.
Oh, thank you.
That was on Instagram. I was like, I need to get a copy of that. I need to get that printed because it's very cute and very like him. And yeah, it's beautiful. So how long does it take you to do everything every month? And then you do like specialty ones too that you occasionally like do additional like bonus issues, or you do little mini character pamphlets too.
Yeah, that it varies per issue pretty much based on how many contributors I have. So like if I have a lot of people sending stuff in, then it won't take as long because I'm kind of leaning on them, and then I just have to print and do layout. But usually like a solid week and a half to get it done, from like physically putting it together to stamps on the envelopes and it's mailed out, usually about 2 weeks. But I'm thinking about it all the time. So like I'm already thinking about October. Even though I'm in like the stages of finishing this one, I'm already thinking about the next one. I'm honestly thinking about the rest of the year at this point. So it does differ, and it also depends on like other stuff that I have going on, but I always try to leave as much space for it as I can. And once I get in the groove with it, I'll always have like a couple days. I think I'm kind of there now where I'm just like panicking that it's never going to be finished. It's going to be terrible. Everyone's going to hate it. And then I get past that. And then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this is okay. And then when I'm like towards the end of it, it's like, all right, this is fine. Then I get it printed and I look at it and I'm like, okay, it's fine. And then I mail it out. But then it starts all over again with the next month. So yeah, it's pretty much a constant all the time. But to actually assemble, probably about a week-ish.
The what you just described is like every creator's like wave pool that they go through. Like I go through it. I know many artists go through it. Writers, like you literally just described like what everybody goes through when it comes to creation. It's very funny.
For sure.
So have you had any like what are some of the, I don't know, reactions that you've had from people about the zine?
I've had such kind words, and it's like, yeah, it's really, especially this year, how totally, insane the year has been. It's really been like keeping me afloat in like a million different ways. Like I did lose my job, and it is what it is and all that, but it's just like, this has been, to have a routine and a deadline has been like a total lifesaver. And yeah, I mean, people do seem to really like the handmade aspect of it. Having a physical thing of fandom, I think, is something that people really like. And it's something that I like too. So I totally get that. And yeah, kind of like that. But a lot of people just give me great ideas for things that they want to see. I just recently sent out a survey to half of my subscribers. The other half got it a little earlier this year. And some of the ideas that were coming in were just awesome. Like I wrote them all down because it was like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought of that. But yeah, so that's really been exciting too. But I think that is the thing that I think people seem to like the most, is that physical aspect of like getting the thing in the mail and knowing that it's going to be there every month, and then like being able to hold it and look through it. I know that I like that kind of thing, and I think that other people do too. So
now a word from our sponsor. Do you love movies? The good ones? Even the bad ones everyone told you not to like? It sounds like Super Yaki is the place for you. The team at Super Yaki loves movies, so much so that they've dedicated every waking moment of their life to bring you top quality merchandise to showcase your love of them. From super soft t-shirts advocating for the immediate production of a third national treasure, to comfy sweatshirts celebrating Rian Johnson's triumphant whodunit Knives Out. They even have pins of some of your favorite directors like Sofia Coppola and Jordan Peele. Super Yaki joyously brings you tangible love letters to movies and filmmakers that you can wear with pride. Plus, the team at Super Yaki screen prints all of their apparel using eco-friendly 100% water-based inks and ships with compostable poly mailers for an environmentally friendly alternative to online shopping. And as a special gift to you, listeners can save 10% on their order with the code SUPERFRIEND, all caps, no spaces, at checkout. If the spirit moves you, find them at SUPERYAKI.com. Let's watch more movies. And we're back. Yeah, I think especially if people aren't super familiar with, finding fan art online or, have a safe space from a fandom perspective, your zine is a safe fandom space, right? Because you're never going to...
Thank you for saying that.
You're never going to troll people who love Star Wars, right? And I think that it's like a breath of fresh air when it comes to fandom, because there's this, like, not only are they getting something physical kind of out of the deal that they get to keep, and, like they could literally like frame some of the cool collages that you have created, but also they get to read about other people who have similar opinions or feel the same way about certain things. And that reflection and that, fandom, engagement where you find a voice that is saying a similar thing to you or that you can identify with is so powerful, especially if you're new to trying to find your place in fandom. I find that with the podcast, especially, like, people are like, I didn't know people thought about Star Wars this way,
Totally, yeah.
And I find that, like, slowing down and putting effort into the things that we love about fandom, it gives it a sense of value that goes beyond the clicks of Twitter or making a snappy comment or,
totally.
Especially from a communications perspective, it is a very valuable tool to show how much you love something. And you think about it, like, there's still Star Wars Insider magazine. Like, it literally still exists,
that's true.
Fan magazine that, like, is tendentially, or it's on a tangent from Star Wars, like, it's associated with it, but it's also its own entity. Like, people still like to have that physical connection with fandom.
Totally, yeah. And I think that's an aspect of, like, which one of the things that I talk about a couple times in the zine, because I don't do it myself, but I'm so fascinated by it, is collecting. People who collect different Star Wars items is like, I'm so obsessed with collectors, even though I don't myself really collect much of anything. But it's that aspect of, like, the physical thing you can hold to connect you to that part of your fandom and your love for that thing. I love that concept. I'm so into that.
I should show you my Funko collection of Star Wars Funkos at some point. It's a little embarrassing how big it's gotten.
It's totally understandable.
So have you had, like, you've started to have people who have contributed. What is your favorite, like, contribution that you've had so far? I know you probably love them all individually, but what has been kind of the neatest one that you've had?
Yeah, that is hard because I love them. I love them all. And I'm so thankful for all of them, especially how many different areas it covers. Because I've had a couple people do book reviews. I had a couple people just write about like what they love, which is what I like. Like you write about what you love and then I'll put it in, even if it's something that I don't really know a lot about. I'm like super into that. But I mean, I have to say that my favorite thing was that I was able to ask James Arnold Taylor a couple questions for my issue that I did that was a deep dive all about Obi-Wan, which is also probably my favorite issue. It just has to be that one because I just love it. But especially because I love Obi-Wan in general, but just being able to deep dive into that character and then to have a little bit of words from someone who has a strong connection with that character in like a literal sense was just really crazy and cool. It's one of those things where you just I'm sure you can relate with, of just like, well, I'll send the email and the worst they're going to say is nothing. So it was like that kind of thing. And it just happened to work out. And I just loved being able to have that in that issue was very special to me. And it's something that I'll cherish forever just because of that, like having someone who was literally so connected to the character, talk a little bit about their experience with the character in that issue that's all about the character. It was just, that was like a real dream for sure.
One thing that I love is that you have started to include QR codes that link to listenable playlists that are available like on YouTube. And that's like a technological advance that of course could not have existed in the early fanzines unless people just like listed out like, here are the songs, but you have to go buy all the records and you have to go find all these, all these songs, and they might not be on the radio, but like you can I literally scanned it and I got the playlist with my phone and I was able to listen to it while I was reading the zine. And I thought that was just such a cool ad. And I have a suggestion for you, which I'm gonna pitch you on live on the show, and then I'm gonna have your reaction to it. So but where did you come up with that idea? I just want to talk about that for a moment before I get in that.
Yeah, I mean, I have one of my things when I was young, when I was probably middle school even, and high school, was that I was just obsessed with making mixtapes for people. I would make mix CDs and was very like obsessive about it and would like make sure that one song flowed into the next, and then I would make packaging, and like I just like loved doing that. And it's like a real loss for me that I can't really do that anymore because it's just not a thing. I wouldn't even have a way to do it. Like my computer I have doesn't do it. So I mean, so that was like a real thing that I just wanted back in my world because I just loved doing it so much. So that the first one I made was for the third issue, which was all about me reading Heir to the Empire for the first time. And like while I was reading it, Mara Jade is just like so mad, but they don't really tell you why she's mad until like super late in the book. So I was like, man, she's just so mad. So I wanted to make just like a playlist full of angry music and just like picture her like stalking like through the forest with the things, the like wolf things, whatever they were, and just like listening to like Khalees scream, "I hate you so much" right now. So like that was where it first started. And then I realized that QR codes could be so useful in that way. So not only do I use them for playlists, which is the best thing, but also like if somebody wanted to write something, because the zine is very limiting space wise. So if you wanted to write something, but it was like a little bit too long, I could put an excerpt and then link to the rest of it on your blog or whatever with a QR code. So that's super useful. I did that with a fan fiction that I love in issue, I think 8 or 9, I don't know, but it was great. And so I was able to link to like the full version of that. So I love the aspect of the QR code, but especially just because I love making people mixes. So now it's like I get to make 200 people a mix. I'm probably going to make one for October. Spoiler alert. I won't tell you what it'll be or anything, but it's so much fun.
That's awesome. So here's my pitch.
Okay.
There is a long and interesting history of Star Wars fan bands. And like Blast Points has covered some of them, but I miss this band and I want somebody to cover them. And I think that they would be a great addition to your collection in a General Grievous kind of way. And it would be really cool if you made like mix lists of like all of these different like bands like Blue Harvest. If you included, say, MC Chris with Fats Vet, especially with The Mandalorian coming up or whatever. Like, I think there's a lot of cool stuff in there. So that's my pitch.
No, I love that. I think that's a really good idea. I do know a lot of that music mainly only from the Blast Points episodes where they listen to them all. But yeah, that would be awesome. I'm definitely going to write that down. That's super cool.
And I think Miss This is like one of the newest out there, maybe, because some of them are like older from a band perspective, but I think their music is just like top notch. So
that's awesome. I've heard of them and I've seen them linked a bunch of times, but I haven't heard their stuff yet, so I have to get into it for sure.
Yeah, it's semi folksy, but it's like it's two women and they harmonize in a hauntingly beautiful way.
Ooh.
So you're gonna love it.
Awesome. That's so cool.
And so what is your sort of dream project, like out beyond fanzines? Because I think that you kind of got this mastered now. You've been at it for a year and a little bit. Like, what is your dream project that you could work on that would contribute to fandom?
I mean, I know it's like one of those things that I don't even want to like say it out loud because then it'll mean that it is really like a dream. But it is like I would just love to make official art, like licensed art, just one piece of art that they're like, oh, we like that one. Can we put it on the .com or something? Like that's the dream. Just because I love like celebrating the characters and collage. Like it's not the case. It's probably the case with 85 to 90% of them. I can't say all of them because maybe there's one where I'm like, oh, I just like the pretty colors, but like, for the most part, I do put like a lot of thought into the scraps that I use in my art and like the collage. Like I really do like try to communicate like different parts of the character or their life or their story or so like, I don't know. That's just, if you ask what my dream is, that's it. Just to make like some type of poster or like a thing, like a greeting card. I don't know. That's definitely the dream for sure.
I guess we have a lot of future stuff coming up with Star Wars. What are you looking forward to personally? And then what are you looking forward to covering?
That's a good question. I'm definitely really excited for season 2 of The Mandalorian just because I'm hoping I don't get a lot of hopes for Star Wars things just because I'm kind of down for whatever in that way, but like so I don't have like, I hope I see this, I hope I see that. I don't try not to get too specific with it, but I do hope that they continue to just like push the bar and just do weird stuff and do cool stuff and like just to keep like going out there with. So I'm excited to cover that because I'm excited to, in preparation for season 2, to dive back into season 1 and just, I love a good hype train. I'm such a sucker for the hype train. Like I'm on board, like all aboard. So, and like, I know that hype trains, are good and bad for so many reasons, but I just love getting super excited and, isolating the sound in trailers and that's I live for that stuff. So, and it can be good or bad, but I never get too specific with like what I'm hoping for. I'm just like, just bring it on. But yeah, so season 2 of Mando, I'm excited for. I'm excited also to dig into a lot of the stuff that I have yet to consume. I'm super, super bad at reading. Sometimes I'll just go like a year without reading a book, not a Star Wars book, just a book. I just can't do it. But then I'll get in a flow and I'll read a ton. So I'm hoping to get into a flow because there's a ton of stuff I've missed out on that I'm just dying to read, and I'm really excited about.
I should send you a reading list of like MC's top reads.
Please, I want the list. I need the list. And and so I'm excited to talk about those too, because I like sometimes to talk about something that's like kind of quote unquote like old news, but I like to cover that and then have people be like, oh, that's cool. And and then maybe if somebody hasn't read it or whatever, then they'll read in the zine and then get into it themselves, that kind of thing. So
that's so cool. I do want to take a side diversion and talk about Enfys Nest and your love of Enfys Nest and my love of Enfys Nest, and talk about like speculation. Like, what would you like to see if we saw a show with Enfys Nest in it?
Oh, I haven't even like let my brain think about it, because I do that. I just like I try not to like.
You're like, don't get your hopes up. My brain constantly lives in like, they could do this, and then this is what they did, and I analyze that to death, right? Because I love semiotics, and I love understanding the symbols that are in there, and I love understanding the structure, and I love understanding the reasons why people did that, and then taking a step back and being like, well, what does that mean for me as a viewer, as a consumer? And like, my brain just doesn't stop. But I also like being like, okay, what would I like to see, or what would be a cool story to tell?
For sure. Yeah. I think Enfys is so cool. Like I feel like there's still a lot of mystery there. Like, but I do kind of want to see what happens after Solo. I think like if she was in the Cassian program, not that, maybe, who knows, but that would just be real cool. Wouldn't it? And like, that's the kind of thing where it's like, and it's a character that like, we don't know what happens to them. So there's a lot of freedom there,
Yeah. And I was very mad at Star Wars for a little bit of time of like cutting people's like threads short from a fate perspective, because it's like, we get no more stories if they're cut short. The most recent example of that was in the Poe Dameron book. I was very mad because some of the cool characters were like just dead, and I was like, stop because we could tell more stories if they lived and they're added to the universe rather than taken away. And I just kind of get into that, like, oh, what, I hope that they get over that eventually, and not everybody needs to die all the time. I know there's war in the name, but it would just be really cool to leave some of these threads open so other storytellers could pick that up. But I have two stories I want out of Enfys Nest. I want the future one with potentially in Cassian or on her own show, which would be really, really cool. I also want the story of her and her mom when she's like a little girl.
Yes. And I knew you were going to say that.
Like, I want that story. I want her, because we know the actress herself is mixed race. I would like her mom to be full Black. Like, so we actually get that like that story, and like, she's wearing the mask, she's got the outfit. Like, how do you balance being a mom and a freedom fighter? And like, I want that story. Because
that sounds
sometimes
great.
You don't have a choice. Like, literally, we're getting that story from like Mandalorian, lone wolf and cub, lone wolf and cub. Like, we're getting that story, but people kind of assume that moms wouldn't do that. But like, if you're given no choice, like, you're going to protect your child and still fight for freedom. Like, so yeah, that's me.
Oh, that would be so good.
Putting that out into the universe.
I would love that even in, I honestly feel like I would love that in novel form, only because you could hear more of like the inner voices then, and like the descriptive nature of a novel would be so good for that story. But then
even in a novel would be amazing, like, just as an exploration of what moms are willing and able to do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, love that. That's awesome.
Well, Cara, where can people track down the zine, sign up for it, get in on this action? And just to let you know, I love the fact that you can actually still find the zine out there and then get all of the back issues if you want. I love that.
Yes. Yeah, that's been super fun too. I don't know if that'll have to change next year just because I don't know if I'll be able to keep the stock of all 3 years. I might just make it like kind of something that comes and goes for the 2019 issues. Mm-hmm. But that is so fun. And I love wrapping them up.
If you want to get caught up, you can order this or as a one-time thing or yeah.
And I like to wrap them up in string and like make a cute little package. I love like packaging is really fun. Yeah, but the only place to find me is Instagram. I do not do Twitter. I wish all Stay of you away. That do.
It's cool. I will. I wish you all very on Instagram.
Yeah, it's just like better for me not to, so I don't. But yeah. So Instagram. That's where I live. Sacred Something by Kara with a K, Kara. Sacred Something by Kara. And you can find me there and link in bio, all that good stuff. See all my art and zine and yeah. And tell me if you want to be in the zine. We'll do stuff. Whoever you are who's listening, if you have an idea, shoot it my way. Please.
And I'll link to both the zine link where you can submit to get it and also to your email so you can submit stuff to
please
in the liner notes. So check that out.
Thank you.
Absolutely. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been a joy. I listen to your show a lot and have definitely discovered a lot of inspiring things through listening to it. So it's very wonderful to be here.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is the What the Force theme, orchestral music provided by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who are obsessed and love What the Force: Brad, Cheryl Bell, Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, Susan, Felicia, How Rude, Anna Perez, Macau Mom, Neil, James, Joe Allen, and Christian Luca. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps others find the show. You can connect with us on Twitter at What the Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, or at whattheforce.ca, where we have expanded our content to include reviews, metas, and articles. We also have a Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.